The current leader and dictator of North Korea, Kim Jong-Un, is considered by many to be the most ruthless one out there. All of this is due to the way he exercises his leadership, showing no empathy or pity for anyone, even to the point of ordering the execution of people he once trusted for trivial reasons, and even forcing the relatives of the condemned to watch their executions. For these and various other reasons, his cruelty causes outrage across the world. That is exactly what we are going to explore here today. Kim Jong-un's half-brother, the leader of North Korea, was named Kim Jong-nam, and unfortunately he met a tragic end. After leaks and information about Kim Jong-nam came to light, an investigation was launched, and it was discovered that the half-brother had been working for the CIA, an American intelligence agency. Outraged by the discovery, Kim Jong-un supposedly orchestrated a plan to take the life of his half-brother, who no longer lived in the country. Kim Jong-nam ended up being poisoned and lost his life inside an airport in Malaysia. Medical examiners detected a small but sufficiently lethal amount of a highly deadly type of sarin gas on the half-brother's face and clothing. Two women were initially accused, but they declared themselves innocent and claimed they had been tricked by two North Koreans who were in the country yet managed to flee. It appears that the North Koreans were there on Kim Jong-un's orders and thereby executed his half-brother. In North Korea, watching foreign content, especially from South Korea or the West, is considered a serious crime. Even knowing this, some people take the risk and often end up in bad situations. Recently leaked images from the country showed the exact moment two men were judged for being caught watching South Korean TV shows. In the images, the men appear wearing prisoner uniforms and are judged publicly for their actions, which is quite common in the country. In the end, the men were sentenced to 12 years in prison. Yes, 12 years locked away just for having watched content from another country. Otto Frederick Warmbier, born on December 12 of 1994, was a university student from the United States who traveled to North Korea for tourism in 2015. On that occasion, Otto was with other foreigners in a group guided by government officials. The guides explained the rules, which were not difficult to follow. However, when Otto had the opportunity, he completely ignored the rules imposed and got himself in trouble. He went to a restricted area in the hotel where he was staying, found a piece of political propaganda featuring the former leader Kim Jong-il, and seeing the chance to have a souvenir from the country, he stole it. On his return day to the United States, Otto was at the airport with the other tourists when two army officers took him away. Without knowing anything, he discovered it was because of the stolen poster.
I entirely beg you, people and government of the DPR Korea, for your forgiveness. Please.
He only showed up 6 weeks later, crying during a press conference to deliver the news while begging for international help. Unfortunately, Otto ended up being imprisoned, sentenced to 15 years of hard labor, and the American government was unable to do anything about it. The singer Han Song-wol, known for having dated the leader Kim Jong-un, was executed in North Korea on charges of recording and selling pornography. Citing Chinese sources, the largest circulation newspaper in South Korea reported that the singer had been arrested for violating North Korea's law against pornography and was executed in public 3 days later. Han was sentenced to death along with 11 other people who were also part of the Unhasu Orchestra. Musicians and dancers from the Wangjaesan Light Music Band were also allegedly executed for recording and selling pornographic videos. Even though she was his ex-girlfriend, with whom he was reportedly very much in love, Kim Jong-un did nothing to intervene or revoke her sentence. He ordered that the process move forward, and thus his former love was executed. A mother who saved her two children from a fire after their home went up in flames did not please the North Korean authorities much. The reason is that by rescuing her children, she did not have time to also save the portraits of Kim Jong-un and his family, which are mandatory in every household in the country. Even with her act of bravery, undoubtedly recognized in any other country, they showed that what matters most is their own ego. Eventually, the information leaked somehow, circulated around the world, and of course, enraged many. In the end, even though she saved her children, she was sentenced to 12 years of confinement in one of the forced labor camps for prisoners. Not only did Kim Jong-un end his brother's life, but he also took the life of his uncle. Yes, in 2013, an official note issued by the country confirmed the execution of the dictator's uncle under accusations of treason. The announcement came from the North Korean state news agency, KCNA. Song-thaek, who was 67 years old at the time, was seen as the second most powerful figure in the regime and the mentor of the young Kim, but was removed from office on allegations of corruption, drug use, gambling, and living a depraved lifestyle. Song-thaek was sentenced to death by a North Korean military court, and the sentence was carried out immediately, leaving no opportunity for appeal or second thoughts. He was married to one of Kim Jong-un's aunts, named Kim Kyung-hui, the younger sister of the dictator's father. According to sources, Kim Jong-un was deeply attached to his aunt, but none of that was enough to spare him. As we know, North Korea feels more like a horror movie than anything else. Since taking over as supreme leader of the country in December of 2011, Kim Jong-un has invested his insanity in building up a brutal regime. Not even the trusted officials who carried the coffin of his late father, the previous leader, were spared from his madness. 5 of the 7 men who carried the coffin at his father's funeral were included in a massacre in which they were all sentenced to death and shot before various authorities, whom Kim Jong-un insisted on having there to watch. The motive behind it was never officially disclosed, making it all the more cruel. Some speculate that these men were not happy about the way the leader was treating both the population and the officials, as everything ended in execution, and so they supposedly questioned the situation. As a means of showing who was truly in control, Kim Jong-un sentenced them to death without any mercy. A South Korean newspaper called Jang Ilbo, which receives information from North Korea, stated that in 2013 alone, in the last semester of the year, the North Korean regime publicly executed around 80 people in 7 cities across the country for committing minor offenses, such as watching South Korean films, distributing pornography, or possessing Bibles. Around 10 people were killed in each of the 7 cities. In Wosan, one of the cities involved, 8 people were supposedly tied to stakes in a local stadium, had their heads covered with white sacks, and were shot by machine guns. According to the newspaper, the authorities in the city gathered around 10,000 people, including children, at Shinpung Stadium to witness the scene. Accomplices and relatives of those executed who were involved in the alleged crimes were taken to detention camps. North Korean law allows for executions in cases of conspiracy to overthrow the government, treason, and terrorism. However, the newspaper points out that the country is known for ordering public executions for minor offenses, such as religious activities, cell phone usage, and stealing food, all with the purpose of intimidating the population. It is truly lamentable. In 2015, another execution case involving one of his officials made headlines beyond North Korea via the South Korean press. This time, the victim was the then defense minister, Hyeon Yong-choi, who was 66 years old. He was sentenced to death for dozing off during the dictator's speech. During a ceremony, Kim Jong-un was speaking when he noticed Choi nodding off. He did nothing at that moment, but immediately after the ceremony ended, Choi was detained and sentenced to death for an act deemed disrespectful. Choi had been appointed head of the country's military in 2012 and had everyone's trust, but none of that helped. His execution was carried out for what we might consider a foolish reason. The military chief was executed, more accurately massacred, by an anti-aircraft gun in front of hundreds of authorities who were forced to watch. According to sources, this was the final push for the questioning and dissatisfaction of the officials who had carried his father's coffin, mentioned before, which is why they too were executed. In 2012, a woman named Ri Sol-ju began appearing alongside Kim Jong-un at ceremonies, speeches, and events. After that, people started speculating about who she could be and whether she was really his wife, until the North Korean media confirmed the information. Ri Sol-ju was, in fact, the country's first lady. As far as is known, Ri Sol-ju is the mother of his 3 children and is said to have married him in 2008. Reports also say she was forced to marry Kim Jong-un at the behest of his father, who at that time still led the country. We know that in most countries, women have the freedom to choose their husbands, but that is not the case there, and she had to obey the order of Kim Jong-il, marrying his son who would soon become the nation's leader. According to what is known, this happened after Kim Jong-il had a stroke. Seeing that he was close to death due to many health issues, he wanted to see his son married before passing away. Therefore, he carefully selected the bride together with his son, forcing her to leave her entire life behind and embark on a new life as the future leader's wife. According to the British newspaper The Telegraph, in 2015, North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un seemed bored with his married life and supposedly ordered the creation of a harem of young women to entertain him. Called the Pleasure Troop, it is a tradition among North Korean leaders, as both his grandfather and father reportedly had these services at their disposal. This has been happening for 3 generations and has become a tradition, as well as a display of sexual power over the people. According to reports, the young women in the harem can receive a salary of $4,000 and must promise loyalty to Kim Jong-un since he demands they be only his. Otherwise, the punishment can even involve the death penalty. Recently, at least 10 North Koreans who escaped Kim Jong-un's paranoid dictatorship were found in China and taken back to their homeland after expressing their faith. Having come into contact with Christians in Chinese territory, they were discovered and forced to return to North Korea, where they were sent to political prisoner camps, a common method used by the communist regime to torture dissidents. The reason for the accusations against the refugees was that they read the Bible after encountering the Christian faith, something that the regime in Beijing, as well as Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea, fights against. According to sources, when a refugee is identified as a Christian, punishments tend to be harsher both in China and North Korea. Reports indicate that the North Koreans were held for 3 months in China under torture before being sent back to North Korea. The concentration camps in North Korea, known as Kwanliso, are detention facilities for political prisoners where severe human rights violations occur. These camps are infamous for their inhumane conditions and abusive practices. They came to be used frequently by Kim Jong-un to imprison anyone who shows opposition to his government or expresses any dissatisfaction. Inside them, prisoners are often forced to work in extremely harsh conditions in mines, factories, or agricultural fields, with little or no pay. The food is poor and often insufficient, leading to malnutrition and serious health issues. Beyond all this, prisoners suffer torture, beatings, and psychological abuse. It is estimated that tens of thousands of people are imprisoned in these camps, though the exact figures are unknown due to the secret nature of the North Korean regime. In order to control the prison population and maintain fear among them, many prisoners are selected from time to time to be executed. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.